Hello and welcome to this introduction video for how to use ThriftCart's new worker scheduling tool in the Timesheets module. This tool allows you to manage your entire weekly schedule for all your workers across multiple locations. You can specify where and when they will work, and in what job, all while taking into account their time preferences and availability. And once you have put your schedule together, you can view a table of how many hours the schedule is using and print or email each worker's schedule. There's a lot going on here, so let's get started on how to use it. The scheduler uses workers that have been enrolled, so if you haven't already, go to Enroll New Worker and enter their information. When you've done that, click on Worker Schedule Setup. The first thing you'll need is some worker groups. These are the various positions that you'll assign your workers to, and you'll need to have at least one to use a scheduler. This color is used for displaying them on the main scheduler page, so you'll want to assign them a unique color to easily distinguish them. Now that you've got your worker groups, you can edit each worker's preferences and availability. Up here, you can set which worker groups they're qualified for. If you have multiple locations, you can specify which locations they can work at. If they have preferences for how long they want to work, or other things to note about their schedule, you can enter that here. And here you can set when they're unavailable to work. So let's say this worker is unavailable in the afternoon on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Click Save, and that will show on the schedule here. Click Save here, and move on to the next worker. The last thing to do on this page is set this email address. Here you can set an email address for your workers to apply to when you email them their schedules, or you can leave it blank. Now that we have our worker preferences set up, it's time to make a schedule. Go to Worker Schedule and click Add Schedule. Here you can set the start and end dates, and you can leave either or both of them blank if you want to. If you want to use your own name for the schedule, you can do that here, otherwise the dates will be used for the name. So let's say we're making a schedule for April. We'll go from April 1 to April 30th, and we'll call it April. And so now that we have our first schedule, it's time to start putting it together. Click View to go to the main scheduler page. On the main scheduler page, here you have all the operations you can do on the schedule, and here's the actual schedule. We'll start by adding shifts. Up here you set the track level you want to display the shift on. I'll demonstrate how that is used in just a little bit. So let's say we have a morning shift every day from Monday through Friday from 8 to 11. So here you set how many workers you think you'll need in each position. So let's say 3 cashier, 2 back room, and 2 floor. And if you don't know or don't want to specify, you can leave it blank. Click Save, and the shifts have appeared on the schedule. These empty boxes are for how many workers we said we needed in each position. So you see 3 cashier, 2 back room, and 2 floor. If you need to edit a shift or shifts, you can click on it to select it, which highlights it in blue. When you select a shift, this box in the corner appears with the shifts you have selected. And you can quickly deselect all by clicking on the X. With a shift selected, click on Edit Shifts, and you can change this information. So let's say we need 2 cashiers instead of 3. You can edit multiple shifts at the same time, but only for properties that they have in common. So if I select these 2 shifts, which are on the same day but have different times and different number of cashiers needed, you can see here I can change the day, but not the times or the number of cashiers needed. If I select these 2 shifts, which are on different days but have the same time, you can see I can edit the time but not the day. To delete shifts, select the shifts you want deleted, and click Delete. If you have overlapping shifts, or maybe different shifts for different worker groups, you may find that they're difficult to see on the scheduler. So here I have the managers working a different set of hours, and it's overlapping with the regular shifts. This is where the tracks come in. We'll click on Edit, and change its track level to 2. This plus sign indicates that this will create a new track. Click Save, and now this shift is on a different track, separate from the other shifts. If we happen to have the same hours and shifts for multiple locations, we have the option of copying shifts from one location to another. So if I go to the other location, you can see that we don't have any shifts here yet, but we can copy from the other location. Click on Copy Shifts, change the location to West. We only have one schedule at the moment, but if we have multiple schedules, we have the option of copying from one schedule to another, and I'll demonstrate that later. We have some copy options here. I'll select Copy Workers Needed, click Save, and the shifts have appeared on the schedule. And now let's save everything. Well, with all that done, we can finally start scheduling. There are 3 different ways to do this. The first is the Schedule a Worker option here. So we select a worker, select a shift, and we get the options for what the worker can work as here, or we get a notice if they can't work during this shift. These numbers here indicate how many workers are scheduled for this position versus how many we said we needed. So let's select Cashier and take a look at the schedule. The worker's name has appeared here next to a box with the color of the worker group, and the box is filled in now. A little more advanced scheduling option is the Schedule for Shifts one here. This one allows us to schedule for multiple shifts at the same time. So if we want someone to, say, work as a cashier for the entirety of Monday, we can select all the Monday shifts, select Schedule for Shifts, select Cashier, and we get the workers who can work as a cashier for all of Monday. If a worker is already scheduled for something during one of these shifts, what they're scheduled as will show up here. So John Doe is already scheduled for cashier for one of these shifts, so that's why it says cashier here. So we'll select Emily, and there she is on the schedule. The final way to schedule is by clicking on these boxes. If we click on an empty box, we get this dialog allowing us to schedule a worker for that position. And if we click on a filled-in box, we unschedule the worker. If you schedule more workers than you said you needed, so let's say if we schedule a 3rd cashier for this shift, workers beyond the amount needed will show with this partially filled-in box. And once you have a worker scheduled, you can click on their name. This will highlight every instance where the worker is scheduled, and this box in the corner will show with their preferences. There are several options for changing how things display on the scheduler. We can selectively view worker groups by clicking on the check here. If we want to quickly select only one worker group to view, we can click on the box instead of the check. We can change the time range for the schedule here, and we can change the height of the tracks here, or hide them entirely. Additionally, there are different viewing modes that change how the scheduled and needed workers are displayed. We have been in general scheduling viewing mode up to this point. If we look, there are by worker group modes and by worker modes. Let's take a look at the cashier worker group mode. This divides the shifts into 2 sections. The upper section shows the workers we have scheduled for this position and any leftover positions. We can quickly toggle a worker for this position by clicking on the box next to their name. The checks for selectively viewing worker groups have now been replaced with checks for selectively viewing workers. Now let's take a look at the by worker scheduling mode. This drop-down only displays workers that can work at the current location, so if I change the location, we get a different set of workers. So let's look at John Doe's schedule. The first thing to note is that the worker is automatically selected, which means that they're highlighted here, and this box in the corner shows what their preference is. We are back to the options for displaying worker groups, and it has automatically selected only the worker groups this worker is qualified for. Additionally, the way worker groups display is different. Instead of one box for each worker scheduled or needed, there is now only one box for each worker group, and it's followed by some numbers. These numbers tell you how many workers are scheduled for this position versus how many we said we needed. So this says we have 3 cashiers scheduled, and we said we needed 2. If we didn't specify how many we needed, it only shows the amount scheduled. So if I edit this and blank out the number of cashiers, it just says 3. In this mode, clicking the boxes here toggles the worker for this position. So if I click here, I schedule John Doe for these positions. Additionally, you may see some red or yellow blocks in the schedule. The red blocks are for when the worker is unavailable to work, and if you try to schedule during those times, you'll get this notice. The yellow blocks are for when the worker is scheduled at a different location. So here I have John Doe working all of Monday at this location, so if I go to the other location, I've got yellow blocks for all of Monday. And if I try to schedule, I get this notice. Additionally, while you're in this mode, you can change the worker schedule status. You have in progress, draft, and final. When you select draft, the worker's name appears with an asterisk next to it here, and in all scheduling dialogues. So if I go here, he's here with an asterisk. If you select final, the worker's schedule can no longer be edited. So if I click here, I get this notice. The worker's name displays with 2 asterisks here, and the worker's name does not show up at all on any scheduling dialogues. So here, John Doe is not on the list. So now that we've been through a run-through of the features of the worker schedule, I'd like to go through a demonstration of how you might use its features to come up with a good schedule. Let's say we want to make the schedule for Olivia Williams. She works in the back room, and she says she only wants 15 hours of work. So what might be a good schedule for her? Well, to figure this out, let's go look at the back room mode. And I'll hide this track here. If we look here, we see that Olivia and John Doe are the only 2 workers who can work for these 2 positions here. So we probably want to schedule Olivia during these times. So we'll put her on here and here. And we also have the same situation here. So if we go back to look at her schedule, we now have her here and here. She says she wants 15 hours, so we need to give her another couple shifts. So she says she prefers morning, so we could either maybe give her Thursday and Friday morning, or perhaps we could give her the first 2 shifts on Monday. If we go back here and we take a look at Monday, we see we have several options for backroom workers here, but these 2 are already scheduled as a cashier, so we may want to schedule Olivia Williams here as well. So if we go back to her schedule here, we see that she's scheduled for 15 hours, just as she wanted, and she's working consecutive days. So her schedule looks pretty good, but we may want to change it later as we schedule other workers. So let's hit it to draft, and click Save, and move on to another worker. As we're putting our schedule together, we have the option of viewing statistics on how much time it is using. Go down here and click View Hours Table. This table displays how many hours a worker is working, at what location, and in what positions. This box here changes how hours are tallied when we have workers working multiple positions at the same time. It divides the number of hours by the number of positions. To demonstrate this, let's look at Sophia Brown's schedule. Here she is working 6 hours on Monday as both cashier and floor, and 6 hours on Tuesday as both cashier and floor. So that's 12 hours as both cashier and floor. If we look on the table is counting that as 12 hours as cashier and 12 hours as floor. If we check this box, it'll divide 12 by the number of positions, 2, to get 6. So it'll change that to 6 hours as cashier and 6 hours as floor. So you can use that to view whichever you feel gives you a more meaningful picture of how your schedule is using time. If you want to print a worker schedule or individually customize their email, you can click here. Here is the printable version of their schedule, and here is the auto-generated email, which you can edit. If you want to send multiple emails at the same time, you can check the emails you want to send here, or you can use this box and click Send Emails. Once we have our schedule all set up, we can copy it to another schedule. So let's say the schedule for April worked pretty good, and we want to copy it to May. So we create a May schedule, we click Copy Shifts, and we select April, and we'll select workers needed and scheduled, and we do the same for the other location. And now the schedule for May is a copy of the one for April, and we can leave it as it is or make changes as necessary. So that wraps up the tour of the new Worker Scheduler feature. As you can see, it has a robust set of tools for making your scheduling life easier. We at ThriftCart hope you will use and enjoy, and please let us know what you think and give us any feedback on additional features or improvements you would like to see. Thank you!